All right, Corina, I'm very excited to have a conversation with you about your franchise story and your franchise journey. What I would love to do is go back before you even make a decision to become a franchise owner. What was your backstory and what drove you in that moment to say, maybe franchising makes sense for me?
So backstory, I have a bachelor's and master's degree in hospitality and tourism from University of Wisconsin-Stout. I worked in restaurants out of college, and then I moved into the corporate office doing recruiting and training. And I was laid off from that position when I was 8.5 months pregnant, and the economy tanked. And then I did some other industry work and then laid off again a few years later from a large insurance carrier as manager of recruitment. And for that insurance company, I did a lot of job fairs, and a guy that he and I were vendors together. We'd always be at the fairs kind of chatting. He was a franchise coach. And when I was laid off, I reached out to him just to say, hey, won't see you next week at the job fair. And he said, did you ever think about owning your own franchise? And I said, no, absolutely not. And he said, why don't you meet me for a cup of coffee? And I almost didn't go to that meeting because it felt so insane to me, out of what I was used to. But I went because I was sick of counting my PTO days, sick of getting not recognized for my work, but my boss getting recognized, and just ready to hit my income potential. And thank God I went.
What year was that?
That was 2015.
What a great story. So go back to that moment when you're not working with a franchise broker or a franchise consultant, and you almost didn't take the meeting because you're like, that's against the grain. But as you're weighing pros and cons, which you just went through many of the cons, which is that I'm busting my butt, I don't get the recognition. And you said recognition is one of the key things, which I do think causes people to even switch jobs. As you start going through this process of looking at franchise brands, how do you overcome that fear? Like that voice in your head that's saying, are you crazy? Why are you even considering doing this?
Yeah, I don't exactly know. I think I really just trusted my gut. And what I did know is at the time my kids were young, they were 6 and 9. And I'd never get to see them get on the bus in the morning because I'd be out the door already. My husband would get them on. And so when I started talking to Mike, who is my franchise coach, about kind of what I wanted, he brought up a few models, but the one that I joined, Patrice and Associates, made the most sense. And for me, it really clicked because I could work from home. I really thought I could earn the income that I wanted to, and also make an impact in people's lives in an industry that I really enjoy. So I really didn't do a ton of like financial analysis or pro forma. I just really trusted in my gut. Like, if I'm going to do this whole hog or not at all, I'm in. I'm going to make this work. And that's what I did.
From that meeting to saying, all right, I'm ready to entertain or even sign, how much time went by for you to get to the point of saying, okay, I'm ready to sign the franchise agreement?
It might have been less than 2 months.
It went fast.
Yeah.
In that process, out of curiosity, and part of this is, I'll say this: I think transparency is super important, and sometimes lacks in franchising. Were you given the tools to understand how the commissions in that model work with the franchise broker and the franchisor, and how it is coming out of, in essence, your franchise fee?
Yeah, I do think I was. It was mostly because during my discovery process, I talked to other franchisees. And what was really nice, not everyone wanted to talk about the income they had made, but at least I'd say 2 of them were really realistic with, hey, this is kind of the average and this is what I've made last year. And so from there, I just kind of took a guess at what I could make. And that alone was like, okay, let's do this.
Well, what I love most about franchising and actually hate it in the way that an FDD is laid out, they talk about average unit volume. And I've always said, like, if I were going to buy a franchise, I don't want to be average. I want to be number one. So, but you get what you put into the business. So obviously you're like, all right, I feel comfortable with what they're saying I could get to, but ultimately I'm going to be in charge of what happens.
Absolutely. That's 100% it. Is I was very focused my first 6 months. I bet I worked not, full 8 hours, but definitely worked at it 6 or 7 days a week. And in my brain, I was like, I just gave up this whole franchise fee, my savings account basically. And there's no way I'm not going to earn that money back. So I ended up earning back my initial investment within 6 months because I was just focused and really wanted to be good at this business.
And I would imagine, so you putting that as a number that you want to hit, you're also recognizing that that's a stress point for you. Mm-hmm. You're like, all right, I put all this on the line. Let me get beyond recovery of my initial investment, and then I get to go to work because I've at least freed up that capacity.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, 2015, you get the business going. At what point are you like, wow, this was the right big right decision? And as you reflect backwards, do you ever tell yourself, why didn't I do this sooner?
Yeah. I have thought, why haven't I done this sooner? Or why didn't I do it sooner? But also at the same time, I reflected and thought, this just really hit me at the right time in my life. If it would have been 1 year earlier or even 1 year later, I don't know if I would have been in the right mental space. So, whatever it might be, fate, the universe, it just brought it to me at the right time. And so I forget what the other part of your question was.
No, so what point did you know that this was the right, like that?
I would say around month 3, where I was like, wow, is this it? Did I hit it? Am I there? And could this be my life forever on? Yeah. And the answer is yes.
So this is not blowing smoke, and full disclaimer, like we do, our business does work with Patrice and Associates, and I think it's important to say this. It's not me blowing smoke, but if I evaluate the business, what I continue to hear either from my team working with franchise owners, or just holistically through the industry, is you landed with a brand that cares passionately about franchisee success. Did that come across in the sales process, and how has that been a part of your journey or your story with Patrice and Associates?
So when I joined Patrice and Associates, they might have had 25 or 30 franchisees in the system, and now we're 150 plus, right? So during my 8 years, I've really seen this company evolve. And I think anytime you start a job, anytime you buy a business, whatever that might be, you're worried about training. Am I going to get the information that I need? Am I going to get the support that I need? And of course I thought about that. And even during training, I'm like, oh my God, this is so much information. It was like drinking from a fire hose, right? And then 3 weeks later, you're back home and you're doing something and you're like, oh, this is why we covered this in training. So the training part of it is definitely there. And I think it's even evolved or improved since I've originally joined in 2015. And then the mentorship support piece of it. I had a mentor that was with me my first 60 days. We talked every day at 10 a.m. And sometimes we talked for 60 seconds. Sometimes we talked for 5 minutes. And it was her and I really clicked. She was very honest with me, very black and white. And that also really helped getting me on the right path. So along with that, I would say just me personally and professionally, I've really evolved and grown. Brian Miller, who's the CEO of Patrice and Associates, has been a really great mentor for me and has really helped me grow as a professional. So training, support, someone who has your back, 100% with Patrice and Associates.
This can be a weird question, but I think about what you do for a living. Like, you're helping people find their next career path, yet you took yourself out of the job market because you went in and built your business. Like, are you ever like, hey, maybe you should look at franchising? Like, when you're talking to candidates and thinking about even like some of your customers?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think I actually have referred 2 people who were candidates of mine who were like, yeah, I don't know. I just don't want to work in a restaurant anymore, or I'm sick of my body hurts. And so I'm like, well, would you want to do what I do? And it's really just that simple. It's nothing complex, right? But would you like to recruit nationwide and be a part of our team? So I have had 2 people, one in Georgia, another one in Missouri, who have joined Patrice and Associates just from a simple conversation like that.
Awesome.
But then also just talking to like friends or family, when they've kind of hit this roadblock, they feel like maybe they've hit the glass ceiling, maybe they're sick of having a boss, maybe they just want a different lifestyle. I always suggest franchising. It's something that feels so scary. And I think people picture, if you're a franchisee, that you have to be, I don't know, owning a Subway or something that's really big and expensive and you got to build construction. And that's not really the case. There's so many franchise opportunities out there that can be professional services or a work from home environment that, I don't know. I kind of think about it like getting a tattoo, Nick. Like, for so long, when you're thinking about getting a tattoo, you think about it, you look at it, maybe you shop around, you ask your friends who's had a tattoo, you save up, oh, can I afford it? And then all of a sudden you get it and you're like, this was nothing. What's the next one I'm going to do, right?
I mean, that connects with me because I have multiple tattoos. So totally makes sense to me. But no, you're right. It's like jobs are easy because we're raised from start of school that all of this is to get a job.
Yeah.
Along the way, if you have somewhat of a crazy enough brain, you either become entrepreneur or entrepreneurial. And there's a select few that do that. But if you look at those that create the highest amount of wealth in this country, it ends up being those that tend to go into business. They find a pathway where everything that they do is for themselves and their families, not just for a boss. So, but sitting on the sidelines and thinking about it, there's a million reasons why not to do it. But what you said is like, eventually when you jump, you can actually realize that you can swim.
Yeah, absolutely.
When I think about what causes someone to switch a job, and I think this will connect with you on what caused you to now leave the career world behind and open up your own business, but tends to be, I would say pre-COVID, it was, I hate my boss, I can't make the money I want to make, or I'm not getting the promotion that I think I deserve, or there's someone above me that's preventing me from moving up. Now in today's world, it's also how much flexibility or work from home exists. Were those, like, when you start evaluating this, you had someone, I'm going to use the word, you had another business shit on you and say, we're laying you off. And you clearly know what you're doing. You've been having successful here. Like, does that chip on the shoulder motivate you still today? Like, do you still feel what you felt when you were told we're going to let you go?
I know that I never want to work in a traditional office again. So I guess that would be more of a motivator, is like, I don't want to go back to just being a cog in the wheel. I don't want to have 2 wardrobes, one that I wear at home and one that I wear at work. And I think this is so crazy, but in my last job, we would have meetings on a Tuesday about the meeting that we were going to have on Friday. Or I would have an Excel spreadsheet about how to read this other Excel spreadsheet. I mean, those are the kind of like things that make you feel like a monkey in a job in a lot of ways. And I don't miss that at all. And so maybe just days where I'm, I don't know, maybe having a bad day in my business where I'm like, oh, is this worth it? Am I going to make it? What's happening? I think about those things and I'm like, oh, okay, yep, I can do this. No problem.
Have you scaled up a team? Do you have people on your team? Have you added employees?
I have had a recruiter on my team. I don't have one now. The nice thing about being a part of Patrice and Associates is we're very team focused for a recruitment agency. Yeah. You know, there's other agencies that I worked in that are very cutthroat. This one's very team-based, and we all kind of lean on each other. There's, you know, as you get going, I think in any job, you meet coworkers that you like and you click with, you work similar. So I bet I have about 10 to 15 people who are also franchisees around the country that we support each other. We help each other. If I get a job in Detroit, Michigan, I'm probably going to call Gary, who lives in that area, and see if he has something in his pipeline that would make sense. So in some ways, being a part of Patrice and Associates, another plus of being a franchisee, is that you kind of have a built-in recruitment team already.
Yeah. What does the word scale mean to you? Like, do you think about that with your business? How do you, like, in traditional business, you scale through people, but here you're scaling as a team. But what does scale mean to you?
Maybe to me, it means recruiting. So when I started with Patrice and Associates, we were just restaurants. We really didn't even do hotels or executive search. And I would say in the past 5 years, we've really evolved in that way. And so besides just restaurants, we do hotels, but I've had hair salons, manufacturers, food production. So scale to me means also reaching outside of what would be my traditional work desk of the jobs I kind of work. And then also taking on some different level positions. I have a large Minnesota-based company here that they've given me lots of interesting jobs over the time of about 3 years now. And some of the jobs, I had no idea this kind of title existed in the world. So I kind of hang up for my intake call and Google it and learn about it. So maybe scale's more like that. Networking and having higher level executive positions that I'm working on that take a little bit more research and a little bit of understanding that job before I can find the right person for it.
Your demeanor comes off very content and happy. So this question, you may have already answered it, but are you dreaming of something in business anymore?
Well, if I did hit the Powerball, so like, I'm not worried about anything. Money's no object. Maybe at that time I would have like a office where I would have 4 or 5 recruiters that worked for me. But I think I've thought about this actually. I don't think I would do it the traditional way where you pay your recruiters a commission or a fee. I think I would just pay them all a flat salary. So I remove that stress of having to get that hire or having to earn that commission and just have them plug away and grind and recruit. And I think that would be satisfying because I think you would have a lot of production, but I think also they would be happy because they would just be recruiting and not worrying about getting that fee or how my candidate is going to onboard.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting. Like if I think about traditional franchise sales, most brands commission their sales team based on the number of franchisees that they can acquire.
Yeah.
My concern with that has always been when you're commissioning a salesperson, when you're dealing with someone's life savings and life, then all of a sudden they might guide the candidate because they have to feed their family. And so that there's always like this, and frankly, most franchisors, and we work with a lot of them, CEO typically goes, I want 50 deals next year. And so then the pressures of having to move people through. We did work with a brand that built up tremendous culture that did not commission its sales team. And ultimately the culture continued to grow and drive more in there. And so like, it seems so fundamental. I totally agree with you on that model. I will say on our business, and our business certainly faces challenges too. I decided that very early on. I was like, I hated bonuses at my last job because like depending on how high it was or how low it was over the holidays also determined what happened next. Mm-hmm. I was like, why don't we just pay people what they want to make? Like get that out of the way and then go to work. But I don't know. I mean, I love that statement. I guess my follow-up question to you is, in your opinion, can companies still win? And is long-term still a possibility, or is that a pipe dream now for companies?
No, I think that's a possibility. I think you have to be really open though, right? You have to be thinking of how you're managing, what your people are saying, what are some new initiatives you can do, or what's hot in the job scene, willing to change and willing to like think of new ways of doing things.
Yeah.
One client I have absolutely was against having people work from home before COVID. they hated this idea. There was no freaking way. They wanted it 5 days a week in their office. And because of COVID, they had to adjust and they had to let people have kind of a hybrid role. And because of that, people were, as we've seen in the news, right? People are just as productive working from home and enjoy it and enjoy their job more. But also for them, they were able to attract more talent because where their corporate headquarters is pretty remote. It's hard to get to. Most people drive an hour maybe to get to work. So when I recruit for them now compared to before COVID, I can say, well, you only have to go there twice a month, or you only have to go there once a week. Now there's people that are like, okay, I could do that. I just wouldn't want to do it 5 days a week. Right. So that forced change actually changed a little bit about their culture, but also helped them in so many other ways.
I mean, that's fascinating to me for what it's worth. I mean, we went big downtown Chicago office going into COVID to 2 years after. I found myself being the only one that went into the office. So then it was like, okay, we got to continue to move. When COVID hit, I said, let's go hire where talent is. And so we went from one state, 2 states. We had Dallas too, to all of a sudden we're in 23 different states. Now flash forward, now we hit this mark where data is showing that we don't overly work 40-hour weeks anymore. So we clock in or say that we do, but the truth from the data standpoint is probably we're working a quarter less is what our data is showing us. And so what we did is we tried doing a hybrid scenario in Atlanta to bring people into the office and even trying crazy things like come in twice a week but leave before rush hour and just make up the rest of the time at home. So it's almost a hybrid in office, out of office. The challenge is, like, I'll say this is a challenge that I hope to solve someday, but integrity is still a challenge because sometimes the high performers carry the highest amount of integrity. And when they look at a coworker that might not have the same amount, then they're like, well, that's unfair. And, that's where, like, how does culture fall into the play? And here, like, the reality is you shine when we're talking about your teammates, your fellow franchise owners who are doing this grind the same way that you are, and that you have a family of people that you can rely on. It's probably because you've all gone through what I would argue the hardest thing in business to go through is quitting a job, investing your life savings in a business you have little to no control over on the brand and everything else. And therefore you have this common bond. But, it's complex. It's like, there's going to be a new norm. I don't know that it's defined yet,
Yeah.
So last thing that I'm curious about, we've taken franchisees, we're at like 1,000 of them that we've profiled, and a few things that are fascinating to me. One is there's only one reason why anybody seems to have gone into business as a franchisee. It's for family. Like, it's whether I want to build legacy, or I want more lifestyle, or I want more time, or I want to be able to drop my kids off at the bus in the morning or pick them up. Like, the family is one. The other thing, if I look at the 2 things that push franchisees over the edge when they're in the buying process, it's the business opportunity. Like, what is the business, the shape of the business, and it's culture. Like, do I feel like the vision is sound and they're really going to have my back? The family side and the reason people buy, does that resonate with you? Is that similar?
Yeah.
You?
I mean, family side for sure, whether that's just the lifestyle. Now my kids are in high school, so they're both in events and sports, and I get to go to all of those, which is really important to me. Legacy, maybe one of my kids can cold call like me right now. Like, he mimics me sometimes, and that's fun to hear. And he's definitely got a sales personality. I think when you're thinking about buying a business, you have to think about the problem it's going to solve. And do you really see that as a problem? And would you really want to solve that? Right. So, for me, I really like the restaurant industry. I feel like when I'm talking about restaurants, it lights something in me. I feel like they're my people. And so for me, it feels really rewarding solving that problem, building that great team, getting a great candidate with a great company, and having both sides feeling really well. So that's my problem that I enjoy solving. But if there's another one where, I don't know, maybe in your community, there isn't any really great places for you to take your kids to have them play, like an indoor park. Maybe then you want to buy a trampoline park, right? And be a franchisee of that. Or if you're in a community and you're like, man, there is no healthy restaurants in here, maybe you want to look at being a franchisee of a healthy restaurant. I think when there's a problem and you genuinely want to solve it, it helps you pick that as a franchise. Does that make sense?
Totally does.
Yeah.
Well, you saw the pathway too. Like if I go back to what you said on you're talking with your franchise coach, you're like, this is the business that connects with me because one, it fit into what your life and your life experience was up to this point. It matched, aligned with what your financial bandwidth was. It hit your mission and vision and culture side on what you wanted from your family standpoint. And then you saw a gap in the marketplace that you could obviously figure out a way to solve. So I appreciate that answer. That's fantastic. And thank you for sharing your story. Like, I love these because, again, like I think it's a very difficult thing to do. Like, even though there's always a franchisor behind you, like at the end of the day, success is based on you looking in the mirror and saying, that's my responsibility, and taking that accountability is a big deal. And sometimes it can be lonely, but it seems like you've done a great job, and you're well on your way. And I look forward to staying in touch and continue to hear how your successes work out.
Awesome. Thank you, Nick.
Thanks for doing this. This is another episode of Meet the Z.